What's going on, everybody? What's going on? What's going on? I started a live probably about 20 minutes ago, and a whole bunch of chaoticness going on. But I'm back again, man. Once again, this is your boy DA Boone with DAATL Sports, coming to you, man, with a preview of the Atlanta Braves, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the Sweet 16. We're gonna talk about 4 matchups that we're gonna see tomorrow night. And I'll come back tomorrow night and talk about the 4 matchups that we're going to see Friday night, right? But we're going to start off with the Atlanta Braves, and first of all, I want to thank my subscribers for helping me get to 52 subs. And I'm asking, man, if you can like and subscribe to the channel. All feedback is great feedback, because I know when you're doing content creation and you're trying to present facts regarding sports to sports viewers, people are going to require you to come with facts. They're going to require you to come with some knowledge, and you're going to have to make sense. So I'm also trying to figure out how to grow the channel. Like I said, this is my first live video. Well, I'm actually my second live video on the first night of ever doing a live video. But I'm just grateful for this moment, man. Hopefully the start of something that can continue and grow. I'm going to try to get together and start doing maybe 1 or 2 a week, possibly on different sports, live news updates. Of course, y'all know I cover the Atlanta Braves, the Atlanta Falcons. I am a Hawks supporter. I just don't do a lot of Hawk content. I make a lot of Atlanta Hawks shorts and just shorts on professional sports, period. But the fact that I'm able to do live videos now, and like I said, I got to give a shout out to the guys that pretty much, kind of motivated me to go ahead and get into this thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to make the green screen. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. The guys who pretty much, was on my tail about getting, okay, I don't know what that is, about getting into this content creator stuff. But like I said, I'm just grateful to be able to make live videos now. I'm grateful to be able to bring these things live. And I'm going to try to do more and more and more and more and more and stay consistent with it, right? Like I said, talking about the Atlanta Braves, first we're going to talk about the guys that the Atlanta Braves just added to the 10-day injury list. Nacho Alvarez, they said his estimated return is April 4th. And of course, some of these guys are actually past 10 days, right? But we're just going to go ahead and go anyway. Sean Murphy, who's pretty much our starting catcher, is going to be out possibly until April 14th. Spencer Strider, and Baldwin is going to be filling in as that in that starting role. Of course, we still got Chadwick Trump going to be coming in behind him, in a situation with a pinch hit or a substitute situation. Spencer Strider is going to be on that list for 15 days until April 8th. Then we got Acuna on that list. He probably won't be back until May 1st, which gives him more time to recover from that second ACL repair. And one of our great relief pitchers, right-handed pitcher, Joe Jimenez. Joe Jimenez has been great for the Atlanta down the stretch throughout last season. I think he's going to be big this year. Comes back. I do think that our pitching bullpen is probably as strong as it's ever been. We know we're going to see Chris Sale tomorrow night versus how can I forget his name? I'm sorry, y'all. See, this is one of those things you want. Michael King, last season Michael King went 13-9, 2.95 ERA, which was incredible. Played in 31 games, started in 30 games. He had 103.2 innings pitched, 201 strikeouts, which is pretty much a stellar season. This guy's their ace, a guy that they believe can go out there and set the tone on opening day for the San Diego Padres. And of course, we got our Cy Young Award winner, Chris Sale. 2024 went 18-3, 2.3 ERA. Played in 29 games, started all 29 of those games. 177.2 innings pitched, 225 strikeouts. Of course, he had 20 strikeouts in spring training. 1 win, 1 loss, 2.79 ERA, 5 games started. 19.1 innings pitched. I think he had a pretty good spring. Did have the 1 loss. But I think Chris Sale is going to pick up right where he left off. And looking at this situation, we're having Chris Sale starting the season as the ace. Because if you look at this Braves situation, you can go back to Max Fried when he first came to Atlanta with Strider, and talk about the conversation of having aces. I think that having Chris Sale and Spencer Strider legit was the Braves' 2 aces. And you talking about going down the line, with those 2 guys starting off, then bringing in a Reynaldo Lopez, a Swellenbach, right? You look at those Guys right there alone. You're talking about going to a 7-game playoff. And we don't want to go too far, but this team will make the playoffs. This team will get over the hump. This team will be in the division around for sure. This season, I think the Atlanta Braves could possibly be the number seed in the National League, of course. If not the 1 seed, the 2 seed, the powerhouse Dodgers. Defending champions are getting ready to defend that crown. And, those guys are going to always be tough. So we're going to see Michael King versus Chris Hill tomorrow on the mound, 4:10 Eastern time. Of course, in San Diego, it's going to be 1:10 p.m. Western time. But like I said, 4:10 Eastern Standard Time. We're here on the East Coast for the Atlanta Braves fans. Like I said, excited to see this team go. I think it's going to be a great matchup tomorrow. I think both teams are going to have their hands full with these pitchers. But I'm excited to see this Braves roster, right? So let's go up to the potential starting, the opening day potential batting rotation for the Atlanta Braves. Of course, with Ronald Acuna Jr. still being down, we know for a fact Jurickson Profar is going to be our leadoff guy. I think this is a guy that the tone was great for the Padres, setting the tone as a leadoff guy, a guy that's a consistent home run hitter, guy's consistent RBI getter, consistent base stealer. Jurickson Profar is an all-around baseball player, right? And an all-star caliber player who I think puts the Braves on the hump. We know we can look at the Dodgers lineup. We can look at all the guys. Machado. We can look at Mookie Betts. We look at Freddie Freeman, Ohtani. If you look at this Braves team, the Braves have always had dangerous hitters 1 through 9, adding a Profar to that mix. And when a Ronald Acuna Jr. comes back, the sky is the limit for these Atlanta Braves in 2025. And I believe that 2025 is championship bust for the Atlanta Braves. I mean, even with what they have with the contracts, they still have a few of these guys locked up through 2027, 2026, 2029. Braves have done a great job dispersing funds to build championship caliber rosters. Now, we can go back to last year and talk about how bad the Braves were. The fact that the Atlanta Braves were able to make it to the wild card, in which this is a rematch against the San Diego Padres from that series last year, in which I'm itching to see these Atlanta Braves come out with to start the season with a 4-game sweep. If Tatis and the Padres have anything to say about it, I doubt it's going to be a sweep, because we're talking about a team that's arguably one of the best teams in the National League in baseball, in the San Diego Padres, who has great pitchers, another great roster with the exception of Jurickson Profar now being a member of the Atlanta Braves. I think this is another team that's dangerous 1 through 9 in that batting order, and at any time could mount a comeback down, anything. So I'm just excited for this series. We opened up the season in San Diego for a 4-game series, and game 2 we should see Reynaldo Lopez and Dylan Cease, 2 other incredible pitchers. These guys last year, what they did, strikeout numbers, ERA, wins and losses, game started, innings thrown. Like I said, and then you go to Schwellenbach for game 3. The list goes on and on and on and on. I mean, yeah, for game 3. So, like I said, excited to see. So, like I said, Jurickson Profar will probably be leading off for the Atlanta Braves. Austin Riley will be in that second spot. Matt Olson, great home run hitter, great bat, great at bat. Like I said, you look at our roster. I mean, you talk about these first guys, 6 guys. You throw Michael Harris in there, who's probably one of the better centers in the MLB, and a guy that you can plug in as a leadoff hitter. You can move Michael Harris up and down the lineup. It doesn't matter where Michael Harris is. Michael is going to make an impact for the Atlanta Braves. So, like I said, Matt Olson at 3, Marcell Ozuna, who's going to be the DH, hitting in that 4th spot. Ozzie Albies 5th, Michael Harris 6th, Drake Baldwin 7th, Jarred Kelenic 8th, Orlando Arcia 9th. So if you look at, of course, we look at the leadoff position, but if you go 9, and even when you throwing a Drake Baldwin, who's another good baseball player, Kelenic, who's was very clutch for the Atlanta Braves last year. Like I said, this roster is so deep in terms of batting order and pitching. The Atlanta Braves, wherever they want to go. But I believe that these first 6, right, through the first month of baseball, till that batting order change when Acuna comes back. Of course, Brian De La Cruz is going to be a guy that's going to be subbing in and out, probably with Kelenic, late in games, probably a few other guys. But how is this outfield going to look when Acuna come back? There have been rumors that Ronald Acuna Jr. could be DH, possibly to take a lot of tension off of him playing the outfield, risking another knee surgery or another knee injury, right? But, Ronald Acuna Jr. says that he's fine. He's ready to go. He says right now he's at 95%. And, of course, we look at the injured list, the 10-day injured list, of course, which is well extended. Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to be down until May 1st, right? And hopefully Ronald Acuna Jr. is ready to go then. Excited to see the king of the stolen bases come back once again. And let's see if we can pick up where he left off. I still got faith in the kid. I still believe he's the baseball when healthy. And I still believe with a Ronald Acuna Jr. last season, no injury, I think the Braves have made it a lot farther than they did in the postseason last year. So, like I said, excited to see this Atlanta Braves team. Like I said, we open up in San Diego for game series and go on to face the defending champion in the Los Angeles Dodgers, which is probably going to be an epic series. And one of those games, if I'm not mistaken, will be the first Saturday night Fox game for the Atlanta Braves, of the season, right? So, like I said, I'm just very excited to see where this thing is going to go for the Atlanta Braves, man. Like I said, it's going to be huge. And just to give you a rundown of the depth, like I said, as of right now, Drake Baldwin is listed as the first catcher. Trump behind. We know, of course, when Sean Murphy returns, he's going to hold down that starting spot. First will be Matt Olson as usual. Second base as usual, Ozzie Albies. Shortstop, Orlando Arcia. And, of course, third baseman, the great former MVP, Austin Riley, who's going. I'm also excited to see back. And I think if we had Austin Riley, one of our vocal leaders, team leaders, probably the most clutch Atlanta Braves in terms of, you talking about walk-off win. Don't get me wrong, all of these Braves are. But if you've been a Brave fan like me, I mean, you look at Austin Riley, a lot of similarities to Chipper Jones. In fact, I think he's going to finish his career with better numbers than Chipper Jones, and we know Chipper Jones is great. Of course, Marcell Ozuna is going to be in that DH position. Our starting pitching rotation, of course, Chris Sale, left-handed pitcher, is going to start off as until they decide what they're going to do with Strider. Then we have Reynaldo Lopez, second behind him, Spencer Swellenbach, Grant Holmes, and A.J. Smith-Shawyer. Right? And then going down to relief, we know we still have our closing pitcher, Raisel Iglesias, the great Pierce Johnson, Dylan Lee, who's arguably probably one of the best left-handed relievers, if not top 5 left-handed relievers in baseball. Another great Aaron Baumer, Hector Neris, Enyel De Los Santos, a guy they brought in this season with the departures of Jesse Chavez, Craig Kimbrell, and Drake Diekman, right? And Chavez, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, he's going to another team, but I did hear things about coming back to the Braves, AAA Gwinnett team. And then forget about our draft pick, Anderson Pilar, right? He didn't really show enough this spring. So I think and basically he returned to the Marlins 2 days ago. So like I said, a lot of interesting things going on with the Atlanta Braves, but I do think the bullpen is still strong. I think this is probably top 3 bullpen in baseball, especially when you talk about our starters and we get Spencer Strider back. And then we look at our utility. Nick Allen, another guy, Eli White, who I think can improve from last year. I think was decent last year in clutch situation. A guy that's very great on when stealing bases. So I do think this Atlanta Braves team is a lot stronger this year. And in fact, they were strong last year prior to the injuries. But like I said, I think this Atlanta Braves team is going to make a statement on opening day. I think they're going to make a statement throughout the season. And I think when it's all said and done, this Braves team may be good enough, or it may even be the best Braves team ever. When I'm going to say that again, the best Braves team ever. And I think with the moves they've made, I think we're going back to those 1990s Braves, the team of the decade, team of the 90s who competed in what? 2 or 3 World Series. I know they were 95, they won. 99, they got swept by the Yankees, right? So I think that this season, I'm a big-time Braves fan, man. You know, my very first Braves game was at 4 years old in 95. My granddaddy took us to a game. Can't really remember. I think the second to the last year of Fulton County Stadium actually being the home for the Atlanta Braves before they moved to Turner Field in 97. Of course, I go to Truist Park a lot. I've been to a lot of Brave games since they've been at Truist. But Turner Field, to me, was Braves country, man, legit. And we're on Truist Park, great atmosphere. That's definitely Braves country. And that building is rocking. And you talking about sellout crowds every night or every day in Major League Baseball. But, Man, I'm like I said, I grew up in the turn field era, man, where the Atlanta Braves had those 14 straight division titles. I got a chance to see a lot of playoff games with the Atlanta Braves. Even when I was a kid, we would go out on waters, to go try to kick it with the tailgaters, try to get in on the news media coverages. Like I said, even you should jog around Turner Field as a jit, So, like I said, I'm excited to see what the Atlanta Braves team is going to go this season. But moving on, right? We are finally at the Sweet 16, and I think the round of 32 was probably arguably one of the best portions of any NCAA tournament. So we saw a lot of great games, and it take me back to the Florida and UConn game. Arguably, I think that was the best game of the NCAA tournament, and I think that these games coming up in the Sweet 16 are actually going to top. So like I said, we're going to talk about pretty much the first 4 games of the tournament. And at that top spot, we see Arizona and Duke. Duke is pretty much a 9-point favorite in this matchup, according to ESPN sources. And I do think that the Duke Blue Devils pretty much, I just think they're going to be overwhelming for the Arizona Wildcats. And I think ever since they had Jon Scheyer, Duke has become a half-court set basketball team. And Arizona is not a really good three-point shooting team, which I will hurt them due to the fact that Duke is arguably the best three-point shooting team in the country. And like I said, Arizona is more of a run and gun, get to the basket type team. Duke is the 3rd best 2-point defending team in basketball, right? So for this game, if you think Duke is going to win, leave a D in the comments. You think Arizona's going to win, leave an A in the comments. And like I said, Duke is pretty much a very balanced attack, right? And, like I said, this is going to be huge for the Duke Blue Devils, who I think is the best team in the country. And I think that Duke is, in fact, going to win the national championship game. So, and I think Florida's the 2nd best in the country, right? Go ahead and move on here. And I will, in fact, be doing, if I can, do a live tournament bracket. Talk about the next matchup. Let's talk about Alabama and the BYU Cougars. I think that this is going to be a very interesting matchup, but I do think that Mark Sears and Grant Nelson are pretty much overwhelming for BYU. I think those 2 guys have the most to prove. Every player in the tournament right now, due to the fact that they've been knocking on the door. They got to the Final Four a couple years ago. In fact, last year, lost to the UConn Huskies in dramatic fashion. I think that Mark Sears is hungry. I think that entire Alabama team is hungry. And I think this is going to be a very exciting matchup, going into this Sweet 16, right? And then we look at Tech and Arkansas. If you look at Arkansas under John Calipari, Arkansas is legit the only team currently in the Sweet 16 that's not at least a 6 seed. A lot of folks say this team is the underdog. I think anytime John Calipari coach team, and if you're a real college basketball fan, you remember those Kentucky teams with the Willie Cauley-Steins and the Anthony Davises, the Devin Bookers, the Karl Anthony Towns, the Michael Kidd Gilchrist, the John Walls. If you what John Calipari has produced, and if you look at what he's done, and a lot of people will say, well, it was because he got #1 player in the country every year, which could be beneficial to any coach. But I think that what he's doing at Arkansas relevant in college basketball, right? Arkansas is a pretty decent team historically throughout the years, but he has pretty much made Arkansas relevant in basketball, right? And it's fun to watch those guys. They're a physical basketball team, disciplined basketball team who can shoot. They're very good in full court defense. They're very good against half court sets. And I think that in this matchup, the pressure is going to be on Texas Tech, who's expected to win. Another good basketball team. Guys that play above the rim, great guard play, great front court play. But however, I think that Arkansas will win this matchup against Texas Tech, right? Moving on to Maryland and Florida. We talk about Florida Gators, right? We talk about a team that's 34-3, or is it 35-3, 33-3, whatever the case may be. You talk about a physical basketball team, man, that's led by Walter Clayton, man. A guy who, if you look at Walter Clayton and compare him to most of the guards in the NBA, this guy is NBA ready. He's a smart basketball player, leader. and Malua, the big physical African down in the paint, man. Like I said, I think that Maryland stole a spot in the Sweet 16. The guy did travel. That, in fact, it was a travel, right? And I think Colorado State got robbed, which is very hurtful because technically Colorado State won that basketball game if the rule had been applied. But the call was Maryland hit the buzzer beater. They're on to the Sweet 16. And not to take anything away from Maryland, Maryland still is one of the best teams in the country. And I think that all of these 16 teams could be a national champion if these teams balled out, right? But like I said, looking at those first 4 matchups, I got Alabama over BYU. I got Florida, Maryland. I got Duke over Arizona. And I got Arkansas as the upset in terms of ranking. I don't think that Arkansas is an underdog in this matchup, but I do have Arkansas advancing to the Elite Eight under Coach John Calipari. Because like I said, this team is physical. This team is playing together. And I think that arguably they're probably the most exciting team to watch right now in college basketball due to the fact that you know what to expect from Alabama. You know what they expect from Florida. You know what they expect from Duke. And like I said, Duke is arguably the best team in the country. Florida's the second best team in the country. But when you take Alabama and Arkansas, who had great seasons, who played great basketball, who won big games this season, I think that this is going to be very interesting to see if we could get 3 SEC teams in the Elite Eight due to the fact that 14 SEC teams started the NCAA tournament. So like I said, I'm excited to see this thing, or how this thing is going to unfold. And just to look ahead to March 28th, which will be Friday, right? Like I said, they're going to be even better matchups. Now, what really stands out to me is this Auburn-Michigan matchup, in which I'll go more into those games tomorrow. What really stands out is Johnny Broome, who's arguably the best big man in the country. Probably going to be a lottery pick. I think any NBA team is going to be lucky to have this guy. I think this guy's going to come into the NBA and fit right in. But Michigan has 2 7-footers, right? And I think if you're going to have an opportunity, right, to beat this Auburn team with a Johnny Broome, who's arguably probably one of the top 3 players in the country, I think that having those guys and coming up with a scheme, because Michigan has great guard play. They can shoot the ball very well. To me, this is a very evenly matched up game, right? I think that this game can go either way. I do believe that Auburn is the favorite. I think that Auburn is the better team. But Michigan, man, I'm telling you something, those guys have been special. They've been sensational this year. All throughout the year in the Big Ten against top 25 competition, right? So like I said, that game right there is a highlighted game to me. And also the Tennessee-Kentucky matchup. You know, Kentucky's in a situation, and I'm getting wrong, Tennessee is a damn good team. Tennessee is an excellent basketball team with great coaching, great guard play, great post presence. I think those guys were great in the SEC championship game, have been great in the tournament, have really represented being a 2 seed well. Like I said, 2 SEC teams going head-to-head. This is going to be with their 3rd or 4th matchup. I'm not sure if they played each other. I think they played each other in the SEC tournament. And if they did, this will be the 4th matchup. But currently, there are 7 SEC teams remaining at this point of the Sweet 16. So it's looking like this, and you know, for years, the SEC has never been known to be a basketball league. You always had your Florida, going back to the Kim Noahs and the Al Horfords and all those guys. Of course, you had your Wildcat teams led by John Calipari. But the fact of the matter is there are 7 SEC teams remaining in the NCAA tournament, Sweet 16. And if you look at the probability, there's probably going to be about maybe 4 SEC teams in the Elite Eight. And we could possibly see a Final Four with SEC teams. But however, I don't think that there are only 2 teams and 3 teams in the SEC that I think matches up well with Duke is Auburn, Kentucky. Well, 4. Auburn, Kentucky. Well, I'm throwing Kentucky out. Auburn, Tennessee, and Alabama, right? So Florida, of course, because, you know, in many brackets, they have Florida and Duke in the national championship game, right? So as I said, I'm going to see if I can get this live bracket pulled up. I want to do a live bracket, right? You guys, what I think is going to happen throughout this Sweet 16. I'm going to do a full rundown going all the way to the Final Four. Let me see if I can shift this camera real quick. Y'all, 1 second, bear with me. I have to elevate this real quick. Like I said, I do believe that this is going to be a huge year. Like I said, I think this whole, let me see. Okay, let me try to get closer. Trying to elevate this. Y'all give me 1 second with me here. Work with me here. I want everybody to be able to see. Let me see if I can go. Don't know if I can turn the camera. All right. Well, I'll just do it from here. All right. Excuse the background. Still working on some stuff, right? So like I said, so we start up here in the South region, right? Like I said, we got Auburn, Michigan. I'm going to go ahead and take Auburn over Michigan right here. I just think that's the safest pick because I do believe that, you know, Auburn has been knocking on the door for years. This could be Auburn's year to go ahead and go. And fair use. I do utilize ESPN Bracket Challenge. I do the Bracket Challenge every year, hoping that I can win some money, man. You know, we all want to win a few dollars if we can. Then we go down here to this Ole Miss Michigan State matchup. I think that Michigan State is the more experienced team to this point. I think that Michigan State is playing great basketball. I think, and you know, the Big Ten has been a pretty good basketball league for a long time. I just think that familiarity in this situation to the magnitude of the Sweet 16, I just think Michigan gets over the hump right there. Let's go on over to the East region. As I said, I think Duke is going to be overwhelming for Arizona. Like I said, I think Duke is the best team in the country. Like I said, when you look at those guys, man, and what they've done this season, like I said, Maluak and all those guys for, no, I'm sorry, that's Florida. I just think that Duke is the best. I think Duke is going to roll Arizona, right? Next, we get down to BYU and Alabama. I think that Alabama wins this matchup. I think that Alabama is hungry to get back to the Elite Eight first, which they have to be in, which is going to be a very, very interesting matchup with the Duke Blue Devils, right? Which is going to be a real challenge for Alabama, right? Then we go down to the West region, all right? West region, right? Like I said, I got Florida winning this game over Maryland. I think Florida, I think it's going to be an evenly matched game, but I think eventually late in the second half, as Florida's been doing all year, they pull away and they just put the hammer down on teams. I think Florida wins that game. And right here, like I said, I think I have Arkansas taking this matchup here, led by John Calipari, right, who we know is one of the great coaches of college basketball, right? Guy that has historically been great, has produced great talent, and a lot of his guys are in the NBA right now, right? I think right here in this matchup is rich. I think Houston comes out on top right here. They're an incredible shooting team, incredible defensive team. These guys can play half-court sets, full-court sets. I do believe that Purdue is also a good physical basketball team, but I think the end of the run, the end line, ends in that Midwest region Sweet 16 matchup for the Purdue Boilermakers. And then we get down here to Kentucky and Tennessee. Now, if I had to say there was going to be an upset, and really this wouldn't be classified as an upset with a 2 seed playing a 3 seed, meaning these guys had great records this season, I think that I'm going to go ahead and go Volunteers right here, right? Because what I saw from Tennessee and probably about 70% through that SEC championship, you know, of course, they turned the ball over against Florida late, which ultimately led to Florida winning that game and becoming a 1 seed. I think, you know, Tennessee had they'd have been a 1 seed. But I do think Tennessee gets over the hump in that matchup, right? So now we go here to Auburn and Michigan State. This is going to be interesting because, like I said, you talk about both teams having great shooters, both teams having physical guys. I think Broome is more physical in this matchup right here with Michigan down in the post. So I'm going to go ahead and take Auburn for Michigan State right here to go to the Final Four. Then we get over here to Duke versus Alabama, right? And I think that this is going to be the most interesting matchup of the Elite Eight. And however, I do think Duke win this game. I think this is going to be a close basketball game. I think with Alabama's physical nature and with the way the athletes that they have on that basketball team, I do believe that Alabama could possibly win this game. I think they played a perfect game. I think that Alabama could come out victorious. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Duke Blue Devils, who I think is the national championship favorite and is the best team in the country, right? So now we get down here to the West region. I think this is going to be an epic matchup, pretty much between Florida and Arkansas. I think that when you look at a John Calipari who's experienced, a guy who's won a national championship, right? A guy who's produced NBA talent, a guy who's been to this point, right, in this tournament, to the Elite 8 point. I think that Arkansas is going to give Florida the fight of their lives right here. I think that this is going to be a game where Florida is going to be tested. I think this is a game where Florida is going to take a lot from the Florida Gators to win this basketball game. But I do believe that the Florida Gators emerge victorious. And I think that the Florida Gators will move on to the Final Four. And in this game, right, another intriguing matchup right here. I call this the Clash of the Titans in this matchup. Two very evenly matched teams, two great coach teams. But I think that the Tennessee Volunteers knock off the Houston Cougars and advance to the Final Four. Now let's move on to the Final Four in San Antonio, Texas, starting April 5th. Now, like I said, this is the cream of the crop right here. I think that these have been the best 4 teams in the country, in which you're going to have 3 SEC teams in the Final Four, which makes the probability for the SEC up until this point before the game's played, there's a 75% chance that there's going to be an SEC team, and which we know is going to be one, obviously, because there are 2 SEC teams playing. But there's a 75% chance that the SEC team actually wins the national championship. So in this matchup right here, right, you got 2 powerhouses. You got Auburn and Florida. Right? You got Broome versus Walter Clayton Jr., right? Guys who can do it all. I think Florida wins this game in double overtime and advances to the national championship, right? This game over here, I think for the first time all season, Duke has been tested. I think that in this matchup, Tennessee wears Duke down. I think that the winner of this game, right, possibly is the best team in the country, and it's probably going to be the national champion. Now, let's say you get Duke and Florida, right? We're probably going to see the best game in college basketball history. And if you get Tennessee and Florida in the national championship, you get a rematch from the SEC championship game in which Tennessee will probably like none other than to face Florida in the national championship game in San Antonio, Texas on April 7th. But I'm going to take the Duke Blue Devils to win this game right here in regulation. I say Duke will win this game by 5 points. So now we got Duke and Florida in the national championship game, right? These two have been the best team arguably all season long, right? And like I said, we're going to see superstars, plenty of NBA talent in this game. But I think the Florida Gators knock off the Duke Blue Devils and emerge as the national champions of college basketball. So, like I said, that's my take on the tournament, right? And like I said, this has been probably one of the most exciting NCAA tournaments in the history of college basketball. I mean, like I said, if you look at the start of this Sweet 16, I think that every team in this Sweet 16 has the potential to be a national champion. So with that being said, that's going to include this show for tonight. Like I said, excited for the Atlanta Braves opening day tomorrow. Excited to see what season is going to go. And I'm also fired up for this NCAA March Madness Sweet 16, right? Like I said, fair use, fair use, fair use. I use ESPN bracket challenge formats, and I know may have been crazy with the background stuff. This is my first live video. I'm still trying to get my things set up. But like I said, we have a huge weekend of sports coming up, right? We know we got the Atlanta Hawks also playing tonight. I think that game may already be over. I got to check to see what happened in that game. Like I said, plenty of things going on in sports. We drawing in on the NBA playoffs, right? Getting close to the NFL draft, in which I'm going to be doing a lot of live videos regarding the Atlanta Falcons. I'll probably be back on Saturday to address our pass rush situation, the state of the team, and where I believe this team will be headed. And I'll also be doing a mock draft, maybe a short, maybe a regular video pushing that. But like I said, I did post an Atlanta Braves season video. You can find it on my page. Like I said, just excited to see that the boys are back. Can't wait for opening day in Atlanta, their home opener, which I will be in attendance for. But with that being said, this is your boy D.A. Boone. Please like and subscribe, share. Let me know how I did. This is my first live. So like I said, so technically I'm not new to being on live screens. And when you're on somebody else's live screen, it's kind of easy to flow because they're doing all the talking. You just bringing in your feedback, giving input, or, just adding things. But like I said, this is something I really want to do, and I really want to be, thorough with these things. And with that said, I thank those who did tune in for tuning in. This is your boy DA Boom with DATL Sports. Also follow me, DATL Sports, on Twitter. Working on the Facebook page, working on the Instagram page. With that being said, signing off. Thank you for joining, and y'all be blessed.